LinkedIn live stream that also streams on YouTube at the same time. So it's not just LinkedIn. Our word of the day is attitude. I am so honored. Even though me and Gretchen have been doing this for about 8, 9 months, it's always really something I look forward to every 2 weeks because Gretchen's really been instrumental in the program itself, but also in exchanging ideas and activities that we both benefit from. So we're not just here for you, we're here for each other and you for each other. And the more we can help each other learn and find things out that you didn't have to pay the price that maybe someone else did for it, it is really the benefit. So with that said, chat's open. We depend on chat to direct our conversation, make us as relevant as we can, because we know an hour of your time is valuable. I know a lot of people put a lot of thought, and a lot of people, I'd say about 80, 90% are here every day. So obviously it's doing something to make them want to come back just the next day, let alone later. With that said, let me turn it over to Gretchen. She can give you a little quick update and what her initial thoughts on attitude, which is the word of the day. Attitude, Gretchen, take it away.
Thanks for having me. Yeah, no, you make it really easy to share ideas. I think that that's also something that's really important for anybody, is that openness and that willingness, not only to share, but to receive whatever the other person's saying. And I love that today's word is attitude, because attitude really is another way of representing your mindset. It is the physical manifestation in many ways of your mindset. And so you telegraph things whether you want to or not about how you feel about things. So attitude is, I think a lot of people feel like it's fixed. It doesn't have to be, and your attitude doesn't have to be the same about everything in your life, but you can have an overall life attitude, if you're an upbeat, open person, if you're a skeptic, that kind of thing. So it basically kind of comes down to your own personal opinion and your perspective and how you filter that for everything else. It's a very complex thing. And a lot of people are just like, we like to simplify it, right? Adopt a positive attitude and do this, but it's really never that simple, because human beings are multi-layered and complicated beings, and everything that we go through throughout the day, nobody's going to have a consistent attitude about everything throughout the day. I can have an attitude about my dog, which is always going to be good, even when he's bad. But, that attitude about how I feel about, my work or my life or what's going on, with the weather in another part of the world, that's going to change. That's not going to be a fixed thing. So attitude is a very, very multifaceted word. And I love the words you pick. And I know you kind of think about the guest in mind when you do it. I'm curious to know like what was the match with attitude, because it is very important to me. Attitude. Yeah.
Well, and I did pick it because of your attitude, because a lot of times I'll pick a word and, it's like picking a lottery number. You can close your eyes and put your hand down, or you could do whatever you want. But I usually close my eyes and think of the person when they're very animated, when their energy level is high. And that's when attitude shines. And I agree wholeheartedly with Gretchen. And that's why I love having her on, because she has a more deeper, more wider view of things that isn't finite, and just specifically situations or people will adjust your attitude. When you see the person you miss the most, you ever see those, you must have, the videos where people come home from the service and they surprise their family, or a dog hasn't seen somebody in a few years, right? And I watch that and I think, whatever this person's attitude was the moment before, everything has changed, right? They feel young, healthy, happy. All their ailments just disappeared for at least a second or two. And when I thought of Gretchen, just from her ability to deal with things and come out the other way positive, and we'll go into maybe the other story that reflects today. But, that's what I love about people, is they bring something special. And it's really the most thoughtful person who gets to see it first and appreciate and know it's there and know it's there for the sharing. And
Yeah.
that's why an attitude changes with your meals, right? If you just had a cheese sandwich, you're just going to figure I'm eating. But if someone prepared you the best food that you ever ate, your whole attitude starts changing. So your attitude is responsive and reactive as much as it is fortified by yourself. And I think you have a private attitude and a public attitude. You know, just like people get their makeup on or they get fine clothes when they're going out, people want to shine, people want to show up. And, you know, comedians and singers are perfect examples that they could be going through the worst tragedy, but when it's showtime, they've got to be funny. They've got to be happy.
Yeah.
So before we go any further, though, we got such a tremendous output. And that's another reason we have Gretchen here, is everybody loves to be here when Gretchen's here. Victoria says, good morning, everyone. Happy Monday. Great to see you. Renadeb, you missed out. Renadeb's always the first one to comment and always with the same comments. Good morning. I talked to Renadeb in India a couple weeks ago, somebody I would connect with. Kristen says, good morning. Happy Monday. Renadeb is back with wonderful to join the session for sure. Deborah, who is a new person, I haven't seen you. Hello. From Nigeria, happy Monday. Happy to have you. Kristen comes back with my former school principal used to say we have gratitude in our attitude. You should have gratitude, honestly, for everything you can identify to be grateful for. You never have too many blessings, and especially the ones you appreciate, because it fills your heart. It knows that when you have a negative, you had a lot of positives, and you'll have more positives. Everything is transitory. Dennis, our poet in residence, says, I still have gratitude for your attitude. I guess that resonates. We've got a new person who is an international peace ambassador, can never get too much peace in the world. Thank you so much. Victoria says, yes, I will. The attitude makes or breaks your day. It's up to you to choose to have a good or bad attitude, and how you work with people every single day with that mindset of making a positive impact really changes the landscape of what could happen. Yeah, little things over time make huge differences, because you know why? Most people don't do anything, and they could. You know, a kind word goes so much farther because there's so few of them, and they're so easy to give. And, you know, just like thinking of the word attitude today and thinking of Gretchen, I know when you see certain people, there's certain attributes or virtues you really appreciate. And it could be simple, like you keep such a clean house. You're so, you know, conscientious on how you do things. I'm just impressed with your organization. I mean, things that don't apply to your car, your house, your job, your looks. It's the little things that you do really well that people expect or don't put a lot of value on, that the person does. And when they compliment something, you compliment it a little bit yourself, because it's validation, it's confirmation that whatever you did, whatever you bought, someone else saw the same thing you did in it. Victoria, peace and blessings from Kim. Yes, I agree with you. Anjan, who's here, great guy, was here yesterday. Thank you for being here. Here's a new name, Isaac. Wow. Good morning, everyone. Victoria's on a roll today. That's so true about simplifying, but every minute of every day can turn into something very complex, and it always will. You know, just because you stop, the world doesn't. Your attitude determines your altitude. So good. Ashif from Canada. Good morning, all. Attitude comes in different shades. Elizabeth, who I'm having a call with. Hello, everyone. Dennis is here. Wide view is a wise view. Kristen. There's nothing like the greeting my dog gives me every time I come back home, you know, and that is special. You know, I was just with my grandkids yesterday, and they got 3 dogs, and it's just a riot. Attitude does determine altitude. Elizabeth, I love this word altitude. Well, maybe we'll do it again tomorrow if we can get it enough. And best meeting does happen around good eating. Olu's here. Nice to see you, Olu. Purple reset. Hey,
Sam.
Okay, we have an acknowledgement. We'll have to go
And
back when
Sam.
Gretchen gets her turn to talk about Purple Reset. Dennis, I like having input with your great output. Always happy to share a piece of peace. Sheaf comes back with, we are in charge of our attitude. Charles Swindoll, for sure. And you could change it in a second, and it usually does. Attitude is the little thing that makes a big difference. Attitude is what people see and feel before you say anything, you know. And
Mhm.
I always believe not sex, but success as an attitude, and maybe it goes both ways too. You
It
said
does.
you said it right there. A kind word can change an attitude, especially when people feel valued. So much power in all these statements. So, Gretchen, why don't we talk about what your new thoughts on attitude, what you were laughing about when Purple Reset was here,
I
and
was just Yeah, I love Sam. So that's Sam Kane. She does journaling. She has a series of journals for all kinds of purposes and times of the day, and they're just really great. So I love her journals. So that's Sam Kane. If anybody doesn't know, Purple Reset is the name of her business. But yeah, I love I love talking about attitude because it's sort of the foundation for how we move through things, but it's also like the the armor or the cloak we wear to do those things. But it's also not just a good or bad thing. I mean, attitude is how open you are to, you know, other people, right? So if you think about it as opinion or perspective, which it is, they all kind of, make up the pie of attitude. A lot of that really can go a long way. And so, in terms of fostering relationships with people too, your attitude's going to be incredibly important to that. You think about people who are challenged with they have a relationship challenge with somebody, whether it's a coworker or a boss or the person who took their order this morning, or just the person at the grocery store. It doesn't matter. You can have everything in life is about relationships and communication. It really is. And
Mhm.
so those relationships and communication can be instant and last an instant and no more, or they can be longer term. And so when you think about your attitude when it comes to those things and how it is your attitude about accepting external input, even if it's input you didn't ask for or don't want, you still have to have a certain, in my opinion, of course it is my opinion, so take it with a grain of salt, but you have to have a certain openness to your own attitude about doing that. If you've always got the armor up that other people's opinions and their input is not welcome because it might clash with yours, that's going to set you apart from people. It's going to prevent you from creating relationships and partnerships with people who might be in a position to really help you, get to a goal that you want to do. And again, I think that's actually one of the things that makes those great is when there's not this sort of homogenization of opinion. Like everybody has different opinions because that's going to add a little extra something, a little extra opportunity or thought or pivot or whatever that's going to change the way you thought about something. And it can change the outcome in really good ways if you're open to it. I mean, that's one of the things I love about this word is that there are so many different ways to think about attitude. It's not necessarily just how we feel about the day. That is one thing. It's not just how we go about life. Like I have a positive attitude, and that's great. And having a positive attitude when it feels like the world is collapsing around you is also great. It's also really hard. And it's also okay when that attitude is like not good in that moment, because you can bounce back from that. If you don't know how to bounce back, then you'll never know when you need to. You know what I mean? So I think attitude it's a really complicated thing, and it's gonna change. As one of your commenters said, it's gonna change throughout the day, and it's gonna change throughout your life. But you can always have it be open and positive so that you can be a receptor for whatever you need to. You can filter out, receive, right? You can filter out the stuff that doesn't work for you. But if you're not open to receiving it, wow, I think all the stuff you never have the opportunity to even look at and think about
Yeah, you're
and
so
benefit from.
right. And there's so many levels. And when I think of attitude, there's a preparatory level of it where I need to get
Mhm.
my attitude up, right? Because your
Yeah.
attitude creates your thoughts, which creates your actions.
Yep.
right? If you've got a lazy attitude, not much is going to probably take place that day. The other part of attitude is how you project. So one is how you feel and how you want to get ready for something. The other one is how you show up. And just like dressing up or dressing down, when you walk into a board meeting, right, you want to have that attitude of whatever you're going towards. If it's something rewarding, you want to be magnanimous and accepting. If you're in for a long meeting, you want to show confidence, strength, resilience, and you have to almost keep taking a mirror picture of yourself without a mirror as it's going to see, am I slipping? Is my enthusiasm starting to lag here? Am I starting to get a little negative? Am I, what you're feeling is what people are seeing before you see it. And that's what's so important is awareness, is let's hit the people and get caught up, and then we'll get it right back to Gretchen. It's another thing I like about Gretchen. She's always energetic and anxious to deliver more value. Ashish says we are in charge of it. I think we covered that. We'll go to Anjan that says honest humility cannot be ever by any by attitude, changed by. That was the key word. Thank you for completing. Elizabeth, sex will work. Okay. Welcome to live. And I think, just doing funny things changes everybody's attitude in the room, because now you can go from, once your attitude is right, how is that going to ripple? How is that going to impact everybody? And how many people are in a dull meeting and someone exciting shows up, right? Everybody's head raises, and now they're getting now people are greeting the person, happy, and that one person, and it works for the person who brings in the dark clouds with them, having a great time, and then somebody shows up that you just know is a challenge, and you're going to have to work with it because of the way it is. Maria comes back with, hey folks, Purple Reset gives a little bit more definition. A journal is an incredibly safe place to look at and challenge your attitude in various situations or towards people. This can lead you to making adjustments to make good changes. You got to thank every speed bump, because, I was just telling Ann, my wife, last night, in the last few weeks, there's been some surprises and some disappointments and, things like that. But I said, it was only during the time when it happened. After looking back, I said, I needed to get knocked off that horse because that horse wasn't going in the right way. And I would have fought through it. I would have figured a way, right? Instead of saying, thank you so much for giving me the signpost of who I'm with or what I'm with, because now I'm going to make that adjustment. And I think if you look at, again, everything is a continuum and not an outcome. I was here until I was there. I thought this until I learned that. And I mean, if you always think there's going to be more people I've yet to meet this year that I know now, there's going to be more I've yet to learn. And once I get those, I'm going to put it in maybe some of the weak spots or go in another direction. I mean, some people travel to the same vacation spot forever. And some people go to a new one every time, right? How much energy and variety you want. Petra's here. Petra's a great lady with a wonderful story. I agree with you. Opinions will definitely differ from your own, but be positive and show the other person that you care and are willing to listen. And that whole saying, no one cares how much you know until they care how much you care, or something of that nature. Ashish says a certain darkness is needed to see the stars. So right. Without contrast, you have no relativity, right? If you paid $1 million and you didn't know what a phone call costs, you wouldn't know what the $1 million is worth. I carry a mirror to help me keep my attitude in check. That's a wonderful exercise. Omar's here with Zoom party. Morning, happy Monday. Great to see you, Omar. Dennis says, agree, be aware and reflect upon your feelings. Kelly's here. Everybody knows Kelly. Just can't say enough about her. Real anchor here. I have no idea what you've all said, but I clearly joined at the right time. Kelly is somebody who just has an unbelievable attitude. And I think when you're looking at qualified connections and building long-term relationships, just look at the attitude. Even
Yeah.
if you can't see the person, look at how they write to you, how they
Yeah.
respond to you, and you know that'll tell you what you're in for. You know, you
Yeah.
don't want a challenge before you even get through the door. Thank you,
Yeah.
Kelly. Kristen's here. I journal every morning. Natalie, another wonderful lady, great artist. Good morning, great word. Life isn't just about the moments that knock us down, but the strength and attitude we carry as we rise again. Like
Yep.
it's the strokes after a mistake that truly shape the masterpiece of our journey. You know, in so few words, you paint a wonderful picture, Natalie. And I think that's the other thing about attitude is being as clear and authentic as you can in what you do because it makes it easier for the person receiving it.
Yep.
Hello, Carl's here. Carl's a great financial guy, was on the show, remembering 9/11. So true. We move forward. Thank you so much, Carl, for being here. Sheaf, you can often change your circumstances by changing your attitude. Eleanor
Sure
Roosevelt,
can.
a
Yep.
wonderful lady. Natalie, great connection to art and good morning. And Petra kind of fills it out with, she is awesome having a new great show.
Yeah.
Yeah, we want to talk about Gretchen has Plight Attendant on Tuesdays. Kelly has The Awesome Journey on Tuesdays. And now Harvey's starting his franchise show on Tuesdays. So from 8 in the morning to 9 in the morning to 10 in the morning to 11 in the morning. I mean,
Yeah.
you got 4 shows in a row. Tuesday should be the day. So,
Yeah.
Gretchen, what do you think so far?
I was thinking back to when you were talking about, if you're in a meeting, and we've all been this, in those situations where, and it could be anytime you have more than one person and you're discussing something, that's a meeting. It doesn't have to be in a corporate environment, but meetings happen, discussions happen. But oftentimes what happens is we feed off each other's energy so that even if we don't think we do, we'll change our attitude to match a circumstance. And again, that's the sort of temporary aspect of attitude. And so by that, I mean, when we are in a discussion and that, Johnny Raincloud or, Debbie Downer, I think was the Saturday Night Live thing, when that person comes in, we immediately match what we perceive to be their energy. Ugh, that person. Ugh. And now we've lowered the energy of the collective energy of the room through the physical expression of our attitude about that. And even if we don't think we're having a physical expression, we do. But when you have that open attitude that, you may be challenged by somebody, but there's probably real value that they can impart to you if you're open to it. If you can, again, see the person, not the problem that you imagine them to be, and see the person. And the attitude will definitely go a long way. And I think that goes back to the Eleanor Roosevelt quote that, your attitude can create beneficial circumstances for you. It's one of the things that when I work with people, some of my clients, and they're having a challenge with a boss they think doesn't like them or who's just not giving them recognition, things like that. And then we talk about what is the relationship that you have with that person? What is the attitude that we have about that person? And when it's wholly negative, the first thing that I'll try to get people to do is, before you decide that you need to abandon an enterprise you've worked for, you work to get in, you've worked to be there, you do good work, you know it, that's why you want to be recognized. And you must value this person and know that this person is either going to be able to help you get to the next level, or you just value them enough so you want to have a better relationship with them.
Mhm.
But often we'll match the perceived energy. Well, they're not giving me what I want or what I think I'm due, so they're a problem. So strip all that away, right? Level set your own attitude about it and look at them as a person, as a human being. And now approach it from that perspective. And again, begin to build and foster that relationship, because relationships are always a two-way street. It's never a one and done, and it's never one way. And so when you can do that, you can begin to create a circumstance through your change in attitude about it that works better for you. And that goes a long way for people who come to me with the initial, I got to get out of here. I got to get another job. This one sucks. I hate it. And then we start talking about, okay, well, let's peel away the attitude about it. Let's really talk about what's going on. You hate your job. Your coworkers suck. No, they're actually pretty cool. There's one guy, but they're pretty cool. Okay, so Coworkers are good, right? Okay. You hate your commute. It's terrible. No, it's really close to my house. Not a big deal. When they called us back after COVID, wasn't a big deal for me. Okay, I'm not hearing a lot of hate there. What actually is going on? And it's an attitude toward one particular thing. This usually is what happens. One particular thing. And now we've planted that one particular thing as a seed, and now it's growing, it's growing, it's growing. And it's a weed, and it's getting bigger and bigger. And now we don't really understand. We don't really know where it started. We just hate everything. You peel all that away and you really get down to the nuts and bolts of what's going on and what you really want. And if what you really want is the recognition, the validation, the compensation, whatever, then you figure out a way to create that in your current circumstance. So you don't have to change everything to get the one thing you want. And generally speaking, that has legs. That can take you somewhere.
Yeah, I think, Ellen, I know you're talking from experience, and when people always ask themselves, how can this always happen to me and no one else?
Yeah.
One has to ask themselves, what do you do to put yourself in those situations, to keep yourself in those situations, to accept those situations,
Yeah.
and then be surprised at what always happens in those situations. There's a saying, if it's going to be, it's up to me, right?
Yeah.
And you can only do what you can do, but how much of it are you doing? And what are you looking for others that you're not giving to others in return to getting from others? Because
Yeah.
it's not a controllable situation. You can hopefully control yourself, but you can't control your circumstances. You can't control what other people do or don't do, how they wake up in
Right.
the morning or not. And I think the key is always to check yourself. How many
Yeah.
people always looking in the mirror, and sometimes it's important. Is my tie on straight? Is something, there that I need to know? Whatever the case is, you can, just like you check your speedometer, you check your gas gauge every so often, you got to take a look at it and say, hey, am I going to run out of gas here? And I think attitude is energy. And these comments are just unbelievable today. That's why I always keep one on the board so I know where I stop.
Right.
Very positive. Natalie says, great to see you. Oh, Maria's got a big one here. Attitude is a little thing that makes a big difference. A positive attitude will enable you to reduce your stress level, cope with challenges in a healthy and productive way, achieve actionable goals, and maintain overall mental and physical wellness. Well, I think you're so spot on, because when you've got a positive attitude, everything in your body aligns with a positive attitude. If you go in angry attitude, because everything is something before it. Got an angry attitude, got a happy attitude, got a tired attitude, because what it says is, what are you feeling? What are you thinking? What are you intending at that time? And how many people say, hey, you are better off taking a nap, go outside, because before you get on that phone, before you hit send on that text, let it lie for a minute. And if you still believe in it, then it's ready to go. Go ahead, Gretchen.
I will say this too, and I talk a lot about self-command, and I think self-command is also something like attitude that can get misunderstood or miscommunicated. Self-command is also expressed when people do that. They just shoot off the email too quick. They didn't read it. And it doesn't have to be in anger. It could just be something that they're trying to get done really quick. Lack of self-command shows itself. I did a live on Facebook this morning. Lack of self-command can also show itself and manifest as, spray and pray job applications, right? Applying too soon for something when you're not ready. Then it's going to have a domino effect. It's going to have this cascade of leading to frustration because it's not going to turn out the way that you wanted. Lack of self-command can show itself in negative thinking, talking yourself out of opportunities, or telling yourself that what's going to happen in a situation before it does. And that also affects your attitude because it takes you out of the opportunity of being open to whatever that situation might have for you. And so they're all wrapped together. But I think I wanted to mention that because it's one of those things where if you if you do have a positive attitude, isn't Pollyanna and it's not rose-colored glasses. It's not that. A positive attitude means no matter what's going to happen, no matter what is happening, I don't have to like it. I can be very upset about it. A positive attitude doesn't mean you're walking around with a smile on your face all the time. It means you know that no matter what, you're going to be okay. Things will be okay. You can work with whatever is handed to you. Now, it doesn't mean you can immediately just go, oh, like tomorrow is the 5th anniversary of my house blowing up, which, happened, September 12th, 2018. Never forget that day. Having a positive attitude doesn't mean that when something like that happens, you're like, oh, my house blew up, no biggie. No, it means that you've got something somewhere, home base, right? Your internal home base that no matter what happens, you can figure it out. It may take you a while to figure it out, but you still have that inner knowing that you can do it. You are positive that you can. Positive, again, is another word like attitude that has a lot of layers. It doesn't always mean happy. Positive, if you look it up, it's an ethos, really, of getting through something, because again, you have that home base. You have your personal home base that you can always return to. It's your I can, I will, I do, I have, like all those things, your inner knowingness of you. It's a resiliency, whereas, negative is really just kind of close it all off. And so being positive that something is going to work out, it doesn't mean you have the schedule for it. It doesn't mean you have the full plan for it. You can still just know that. And just knowing that opens the door to create the schedule, to get the plan, to get there. Without it, you can't. And so I think that's really important. I want to mention that a little bit, just because attitude and positivity are they can sometimes be misconstrued, and sort of this broad brush blanket panacea of you just got to be positive, you got to have a good attitude. But what does that mean in everyday life for someone? What does that mean for you? It's subjective and contextual. But it's incredibly important, because it's this sort of, it's the facilitator. It's a great facilitator. It makes other things possible. Yeah.
Yeah, I think you cover a lot of wonderful insights and information. And a lot of times attitude, is something that reflects your optimism or pessimism. Sometimes having a negative attitude is giving up on yourself. Is just saying, I'm accepting, I'm a victim, I'm just always going to have to deal with this.
Yep.
Versus a positive attitude is, I don't know what the answer is, but I know I'm going to try and find it, and I know ultimately I will. And I think what I always learned is, no matter how surprised or unhappy you are, you need to reduce it to the lowest common denominator that you can be comfortable in. And I remember in business, when I couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, I just saw, and I would always say to myself, well, I got a wonderful family waiting for me at home. I got a delicious meal, and I got a roof over my head for tonight. So today I'm 100% covered, and tomorrow will have to wait for me, right? And if you can't even do that, get to breathing, right? Get to a point where you say, I can build from here. A lot of times you get thrown up in the air, and you're never going to learn how to fly in that little time before you hit the ground. But what you're going to know is this is one thing among many things that have happened to you, that will happen to you.
Yep.
And if you have enough gratitude and appreciation, you'll think of your dog, right? You'll think of your family, and you'll say how lucky I am, how happy. And hey, whatever I'm dealing with, hopefully it's something that can be replaced, right? Things that if I lost a person or a pet or something that was irreplaceable, that would be a harder common denominator. So, I mean, it's all perspective, it's all relative, it's all conditional. And you know what? Life wasn't meant to be a pillow, and what happens to you has been happening to everybody somewhere every day before it happened to you.
Absolutely.
And you never thought of it,
Absolutely.
never it never mattered, but when it shows up in your backyard,
Yep.
right? And you got to figure, I was just lucky up until then that this
Yeah.
happened sooner, and I'm in a
It,
better position to handle it, Gretchen.
it's something that Ashif just had a comment or he put a thing up there, insight in mind versus out of sight, out of mind, mindfulness. And one of the things about mindfulness that is so important, and it's usually the thing that gets forgotten or left off and not communicated, is mindfulness it's an attitude, absolutely. But the critical part of mindfulness is attaching no judgment to the thought or whatever's happening, right? There's no judgment to it. It whatever it is, and then you can filter through and determine what you need from that, what you can take from that, and what you can leave from that. You can let it go. And that's very hard because we get so attached to our own opinions about things, and our own rightness about things and that person's wrongness about things. And so that also is an attitude. And that is, it runs contrary to, mindfulness. And again, mindfulness, attitude, positivity, those are all three terms that get very, very misused. And so I think that's really important just to remember that, mindfulness is really, not attaching judgment to a circumstance, an event, a thought, any of those things, and figuring out where there is something beneficial there for you, and then what is there that you can leave that is not beneficial for you. And you get to decide that for yourself. And that can lead to a great attitude and a great sense of positivity about what you can do with that. Again, like you said, everything that happens, there's going to be something in there, even if it's bad, like my house blowing up, right? Bad. I think we can all agree that's a bad thing. We don't like that. I did not like that. It was terrifying. But I can also tell you that there were things that I learned and that gifts that I was given during that time. For example, the sheer amount of support I got from people that I didn't even know. I worked for an enormous company at the time. People I didn't know in that company. What can I do for you? Somebody offered to do a fundraiser for me. I was like, whoa, wow. I mean, like, this is crazy. My boss at the time, he called me. We were staying, like, we initially were in a hotel, and then some friends found us a place to stay for the first 3 months. And then we kept having to move after that. But when we were in that one spot, he called me, and immediately my attitude was not right. I had all these things I had to figure out. It was bad. Right. So I'm like, my boss is calling me. He's going to read me the riot act about something. And he wasn't. He wanted to know if I had a lawyer. And I was like, no, everybody, the utility company's being good. Our insurance company's being good. They all know. Yeah, this was like 4 days after it happened. He was like, you need a lawyer. And I really didn't think I did. And I'm so grateful to him for thinking that was support. I didn't realize that it was support at the time, but he was thinking about me. He was thinking about my long-term benefit and health and what was going to happen, because in these situations, you'd be amazed at the number of people who are going to help you fix your problem for, this fear that it's crazy. There's a whole industry around catastrophe. And so that's why when things happen, you really do want to look at that. But you have to be careful about that. I had people who, were helping me at work in ways that I would have never asked. And again, this was something I learned in 2014 when, I went through a lot of stuff. Starting 2014 was just a weird set of 4 years. So I'll just put it that way. But I started, people started really showing up for me in ways that I wouldn't have expected. And I learned the value of, beyond your network, like the people you don't think about that are there for you. And so that's a gift, right? You also learn, like you said, you learn what you need. You're able to filter out what's real and what's not, what you need and what you don't. And I don't mean just physical possessions. Those things, all of those things factor in. But when you go through something that's catastrophic, that you have no hand in creating, there's nothing that you could have done to prevent it or sidestep it or any of that. And there's a million things like that in life. We all know it. We look at what's happening in Morocco. Today is a day of remembrance about, 9/11. Like, these things happen. And so how do we personally, and again, we influence those around us, so collectively, how do we get through those things? How does our attitude help us grease the wheels so that other people can have an easier time dealing with these things and understanding, again, being mindful about the situation, taking it in, being open to it. You have the attitude, right? Being open to take it in. It happened. What can I take? What can I learn from this? What do I need from this? What don't I need? What can I let go? And it can be a difficult thing because a lot of times we have, again, those opinions. I got to do this. It has to happen on a certain time. People need to understand my role in all of this. And it's like, they don't, so you want to think about that. But again, all that to say, those things are really important, like you said. And when you get down to understanding what really matters to you, and again, I started talking about attitude in context of mindfulness. It's a very, very powerful combination. It's like a dynamic duo, for life. It really is.
Well, it just shows you it can do as much good as it can do bad, depending on how it's applied. Yeah. I think the other thing that Gretchen really points out that kind of resonated with me is a lot of times your attitude will affect and impact people and build goodwill that you don't even know, right? But they know you now. They know of you. And then when they learn something about you, and gives them an opportunity to connect and be closer to you and come in as a friend, because everybody's looking to be the friend. Someone has to be the object of someone's friendship. And I think, you just never know what you don't know. I know there's people when I hit the skids that I thought were 100% with me and I couldn't get them to call me back. Yeah. And then I've had people show up at my door and I had to ask them, why are you doing this for me? I mean, I appreciate it. I can't believe it, but why? Yeah. And you know what a lot of people have told me? I've been where you are, right? Not take this.
This is why I love live.
Yeah. For sure. But it was so mind expanding to know that what I thought was countable wasn't, what I didn't know was available was. And it takes the responsibility off of one's shoulders and puts it back on the universe.
Yeah.
Because what your attitude is, Leslie Flowers made a good example, is what you move towards moves towards you.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
So
yes.
Create that intention and that action. But I know if I don't go back to these, we'll never get to them. Elizabeth says we're going to negative Nancy's that we were talking about earlier. Yeah. Petra, yes, I'm all lined up, starting with your show, Kelly's, followed by Harvey's. Actually, I'm going to be Harvey's first guest tomorrow. Great guy. Been doing the show with me for about 4 or 5 months. I applaud so many people for getting their true voice, for getting their wings, for getting on the air. This show.
You're the reason, though, that a lot of people have. You really are. And I think you should give yourself credit for that because, you've been that positive influence for so many people, myself included. So just.
Yeah, no, you're right. Because when we met, you had never done a live. Tara Gooch had never done a live. Jenny Maxwell had never done a live. Kelly had never done a live. So, what this is a runway more than a destination only. And that's really where my focus now is, bringing people to LinkedIn Live, getting them on the show, and then getting them their own show, and I think that's so valuable. And I think the audience is the show. And that's one thing people have to realize. You can do a show tomorrow. Who's going to be there? How are they going to be there? What's going to motivate you to keep going? And this took a year of every day, 365 shows. You get to learn really, not quickly, but fast over time, doing it over again. And I think that's a key to attitude, is practice. Kristen comes back, and on the flip side, some people light up a room for sure. Elizabeth, a good attitude is contagious. We come back with Petra. Thank you. That's true, but funny. Here we go with Elizabeth. All that matters is how I show up with the right attitude. And sometimes it's just tweaking it a little bit. Surround yourself with individuals who are always positive, supportive, and caring. So right, Petra, because on LinkedIn and shows like this, there's so many. No one has to stop to fix anybody. Everybody can stop to help each other, help
Yeah.
each other. Surround yourself with individuals. Okay, we covered that. Here's a big one from Maria. I remember a board meeting in New York City with investment bankers, real heavy hitters. The meeting was going downhill. I just threw something out there that had nothing to do with the meeting. A light attitude in the room shifted the whole dynamic and people. And
Yeah.
that's, you have to know how to read the room,
Yeah.
read the people, and
Yeah.
be a third party observer to your own meeting sometimes to
Yeah.
say, okay, because people are so interested in talking about what they believe, what they feel, what they think people should know, instead of coming into the room and saying, I'm going to adjust this person. How do you do that? Well, find something really valuable and compliment them. Right? All of a sudden, right? People see that and they say, but we got to run. Elizabeth says, preach. Okay. Agree. When you peel some things away, it does become more appealing. So, right. Petra says positivity is a secret sauce of success. Well, we got everybody thinking and moving in this direction. Thanks for the great insight, Deborah says. Maria, having a positive attitude doesn't mean some days you say you all suck. We're human. A day's just a day. Sometimes when you feel like that, it's a sign to clock out for a while. Go somewhere where you're going to have some fun, catch a coffee, call a friend you haven't called, call a family member. There's so much you can do. The last thing you want to do is sit in a corner and start getting mopey. Natalie says, facing someone with an angry attitude isn't easy. Yes, with the shield of understanding and armor of patience, wow, we can protect our inner peace. While it's challenging, always be prepared to offer a helping hand, guiding them through the turbulence. Well, that's so profound. It says, I used to be guilty of flash emails. Now, if something irks the living, I have a rule off the 24-hour window to wait before responding. Petra is huge issue. Misunderstanding is happening too often everywhere, as if people are not willing to ensure the message received it correctly. We covered a sheaf. Here's another Petra. Maria, wow, I do the same thing because your emotions are different than was when you received the email, that they too much fuel on the fire. I know Gretchen always talks about having a little bit more patience before you hit that button. Since moving to the Netherlands, there was never a support system that was easy with other business owners. Most women have the thoughts of what's in it for them with a really shitty attitude. That is something I can't get on board with. We got Elizabeth. It's a practice for sure. Beverly says, good morning. Great to see you, Beverly. Beverly's going to be here tomorrow. She's our Tuesday person. Ego kills. Very, very interesting. I agree with competition among business women is terrible, not everywhere. The only real competition anybody has is between themselves and themselves, right? And that's the best competition. When you say, I can't change what other people do, but I can make myself better and stronger and happier. And once you believe you can do it, you can do it. Attitude is within. Go ahead, Gretchen.
Well, I think too, when it comes to competition, if you have a competitive view of other people, it means you don't have, your own non-competitive view of yourself, or your own UVP, your unique value proposition, whatever. And in business, that's a business term, but everybody has it. What makes you unique? What sets you apart? What is your special sauce? And so it's one of the reasons why, and I've been challenged on this, when I say I don't see any people, even people who do exactly what I do, and I will have them on the Polite Attendant, and I love to talk about them, and I love to surround myself and build a network of people who do the exact same thing I do, because they do it differently, and their different is great. And I do it differently, and my different is great. And that's what makes it unique. That's why it's not a competitive thing. If it's samey, then, if you're literally, running a race and everything is the same, then okay, you can compete on that level. But even with those, it doesn't happen, because training methods are different. Like if you just take runners, body makeup is different. One may have legs that are like a quarter, a millimeter longer, and that gives them a competitive edge. You just never know. So again, competition is a dangerous thing to get yourself into if you think that if you see everyone as competition, then you're kind of seeing everybody as, a nemesis. And there are schools of thought that will tell you that's the attitude you got to have, going back to attitude, to be a winner, right? You're not going to succeed if you see people as, helping you out and your equals, if you don't see them as competition. And there's a place for that in this world. And that place is not in my world. And that's okay. I know that philosophy runs completely contrary to everything that I know to be true about me. But that philosophy aligns. There are people that it aligns with. And so for them, that is a way to go. For me, it is not. Again, not right or wrong. It's just not right for me. So that, I think, is also a part of, in my opinion, having a healthy, positive attitude where I can be open to everything. I am open to everything because I can look at it and say, I get that. Maybe that could benefit me if I thought about it a little bit differently. And then I'll try it. And if it does, it does, it does, it doesn't. Some things I know are never going to be for me. It's just not what I'm about. But if I'm not open to even finding out, you think about some of the things that I may never have learned about myself if I wasn't open. I had an attitude of openness and my own, again, that coming home point, that starting point, that inner foundation of I know I'm positive about the fact that I know I'm going to be able to get through whatever it is. Now I can filter through and kind of decide, okay, this can stay and that can go. I can use this, that I don't really need. And there's no right or wrong there. It's just, that's the way it is. And what works for you does. And if it works for somebody else, kudos, awesome. It doesn't make that it didn't work for you any more right or wrong. It's just the way that things are. And I think that's also really important when you talk about a positive attitude, is that you understand that, there are going to be things that will work great for someone else and they don't for you. And that's okay. It doesn't make you any less right about it not working than the person that it did work for. You're different people.
Yeah, and I think what it says is you have a choice. And when do you become aware that you need to make that choice?
Yeah.
When are you in a relationship that could be just exchanging something in a retail store and then it starts to go wrong?
Mm-hmm.
How many times did you eat from this potato salad you're bringing back, or or you go in a restaurant is versus accepting you. And a lot of people think everybody should do what they do, how they do it, and when they do it, but not everybody's that advanced, not everybody's that experienced, not everybody's that motivated. So you really have to meet people at their level. And too many people get frustrated when, don't you understand? I mean, usually people will yell at somebody who's not with them, or, and it's like, yeah, you don't. Yeah, I don't even have to ask you. I know you don't. So where are you positioning yourself? Because I think your attitude can begin with your interest, your emotions, your thoughts, but they have to be supported by the reactions you get from them. And the other thing about your attitude, who's in your corner, right? Because you're a little bit braver when you're with a group or you're balancing on top of a safety net.
Yeah.
But then if everything is all or nothing, win or lose, because that's going to affect your attitude. Needy is not a great place to be when you're with people, because go ahead.
The other part about neediness and desperation is when you are in that mind frame, and that is a mind frame, that is a mindset all its own, you sort of, you become, invertedly myopic. And the problem with that is, or the challenge with that is, you cannot be open to the opportunity that's out there to support and help you, because your focus is completely on the problem that you have or whatever challenge you're facing. And so that neediness and desperation, not only does it bleed into everything else you're doing and it's immediately obvious to people, it's kind of a repellent in a lot of ways. But for the person who wants to be able to help you through that, you may actually be putting up a barrier to that without realizing it, because you're so focused on what's wrong. And again, going back to what Leslie Flowers had said about, when you are seeking something, it is finding you as well. that goes for problem solving, but it's very difficult, I would say impossible, to solve your problem if you're too focused on the problem and not the solution. And so that's where desperation and neediness can really become, it's the beginning of that victim mentality. And once you're in that, that's a self-sabotaging behavior. And a lot of people, do it. It's not an unknown thing, but there are ways to work yourself out of that. And one of the first ways is to begin to adopt an attitude and a perspective of seeing the world in terms greater than yourself. And that's where you're going to be able to start to make those small little course corrections and get yourself back on track to solve your problem. Again, when you have a negative mindset, when you are so focused on the problem, you're sort of in that survival mode, right? You're in that fight or flight. Everything's terrible. I got to, get out of here. But you're going in too many directions at once because you're operating from the survival brain, the amygdala, and then the stem of the brain, right? Not the prefrontal cortex where all the good, juicy yumminess happens. Problem solving, creative thinking, all that happens up there. But it cannot happen. Your brain actually works differently when you're in a better mindset. It opens up the possibility for that. When you are relaxed and you're more open, it activates that part of your brain that allows for natural problem solving. And so that's why, I talk a lot about mindfulness, but also self-command, so that you can diffuse that inner bomb, self-soothe, do what you got to do to get yourself in a mental frame of mind and an activity state where you can address what's happening, not how you feel about what's happening.
Great point. Beverly, we're going to try and finish up and all these comments. We can learn from everything. Thank you, Gretchen Skelkin. The grand theme of things, what really matters. You can move through all adversity. So nice of you, Beverly, to share that. Carrie Chasen, darn, I almost missed this. Well, you didn't, and it's good to have you, Carrie. Ashif says, check yourself, be better, do better, feel better, for sure. I love how these conversations starts with the whole hellos, love to see you, and then end with the gratitude. If butter falls off the counter, it could be butterfly. Petra says, correct, Donald, friendships are golden nuggets. Here's Carrie again. Morning, Don and Gretchen. Great to have you. Dennis says, hopefully we all love live and we should be happy to be alive. Thank you. So well put. Petra, yes, now you sure have given a lot. I'm still working on mine. And everybody's a work in progress, and understand that. And no one's fully constructed. Connect through compassion and empathy when needed. So well said, Elizabeth. Petra says you keep positive encouragement alive. Thank you, Petra. You're a wonderful individual. People should get to know you. No coffee, no caffeine. Good for you, Carrie. But women have to support each other and not be engaging in that lack attitude. Support has so many beneficial streams, and the opposite has so much. It's what you ripple. We can shift our attitude in a heartbeat. It's a choice to have a bad attitude. You only hurt yourself with negativity. It keeps you stuck in the same spot. You're right. When you're bad to people, you're bad to yourself. I don't like competition, but being competitive needs to be positive and have a good outcome. Being against somebody never helps you be for yourself. So it diminishes yourself and it puts you in an experience that isn't positive, and no one really cares as much as you think they do. A proper positive attitude will always help the individual bring out solutions to the existing problems. Dennis says, agree, good attitude does lead to your more positive attitude, whether you're a chick or a dude. Remember, just don't be rude. I don't know where you come up with this. Thank you, Gretchen. You have an abundant attitude. Everyone has a voice and you take what you need. Well said. Elizabeth says hello to Dennis. Here we go with Ashif. Attitude aligns conviction, action, execution. Lauren is here. Haven't seen you, but glad to have you. Glad to catch you live. Maria comes back with, if someone feels like they sat idle for 10 years and now they're at the age of 58, I think, is it too late? Want to read the room? No, it's never too late. As long as you're alive, you're in business, right? You're open. You should be doing things. Agree to be open mind. And the last one we finally caught up with. Okay, great. So Gretchen, what do you think? We've sure covered a lot of bases. This thing moves fast. And what's your final thoughts on attitude? and what we've been able to discuss today.
Yeah, I think again, it's a complicated thing. It's very personal, and I think it's something that's always going to be in flux. And so, if you are aware of what your attitude is at any point, going back to what some of the commenters have said, you can make a course correction. You can make an adjustment. You can begin to change that if it's not working for you, and if it's not. And so, just be open to yourself and aware of that, and also just give yourself the grace to know that, to Maria's point, you can always do, change, be whatever it is you want to do. You can always begin to plant seeds that are going to grow in the right way. And, I doubt, you were idle for 10 years. If you had a goal and 10 years have passed and you haven't hit that goal, look at the goals you did hit, the things that you did that got you further along than you may believe that you are. Again, we don't do a good job of taking inventory. When we have a goal, we set a time frame to do it by, right? And then the goal. And we have all these micro wins along the way that we don't see. And then we get to a point where we're like, we didn't hit the goal, I give up. But we got all these little wins. And when we can mark those and celebrate those, they motivate us to keep going. And that also goes back to attitude. So I think, again, it's subjective. It's personal to everybody. When your attitude is working for you, you know it. When it's not, you know it. And you have the opportunity to change it at any time.
Yeah, and I think if you look at every day as a fresh start, not as a continuation of yesterday. Yesterday got you to the starting line today. All of your troubles, all of your challenges, all of your victories made you who you are today. Accept it. Take the best of you and take it forward. And the worst of you, if there is such a thing, acknowledge it, appreciate it. You don't want to forget about everybody who might have influenced you right or wrong. But you don't want to continue to memorialize those people who did you wrong, right? If you have one thought in your mind, is it a positive thought? Is it a quality person? Or was this thing that continues to linger? Go ahead.
And I will say this, anytime you focus on the thing that went wrong, the person who did you wrong or whatever, you are allowing them to continue to do it. They stopped. You didn't. You have the choice to stop that. Everybody does.
Well, and you can say goodbye and you can say hello at any time and know when it's time to leave. And, the other thing that's hard is when people leave you unexpectedly or by surprise and you weren't ready or you were hoping it was going to take longer or maybe never happen.
Yeah.
And it's just, again, it is what it is. And that's what I always say. At the end of the day, whatever it is, it is. How long do you want to spend thinking about it? Is there anything you can actually do to change it? And if the answer is no, then that tells you something. You go against a no when you know it's a no. It doesn't make sense. But I know everybody has their time. Everybody has their place. Some people bounce right back and they bounce back with more energy, with more muscle. And some people, they have to take a little time out. They have to reflect. They have to journal. And, the other thing is, that's where friends come in. If you ever had something, I'm overwhelmed. I can't deal with it. I just decided I had to call you. What do you think? You always bring me out of my rut. What's going on? And I think that's cool. Sometimes you got to call AAA, when you get a flat tire or you're down in the dumps. But, on a positive note, all of you here are here because you all want to do better. You all want to feel better. And the result of this is really, where were you an hour ago? And where are you now? And how much has your attitude shifted or changed? How much information now do you have to say, and I think the really big motivating factor is, hey, if Gretchen can do it, if Don can do it, they tell me I can do it, I now believe. And faith is so important and belief in your attitude, because they say faith is the belief in the invisible. When you just know deep in your heart things are going to work out, you don't know how, you don't know when, but they will. You bet. So with that said, thank you all so much, and we'll see you tomorrow. We're going to have